All right, so I'm here at the historic London House right off of Wacker Drive, and I am here with a friend of mine, and this is Theresa. How are you, Theresa?
I'm great. How are you, Tom?
I'm good. Sorry, I'm going to get my camera situated here, Theresa, but we are being serenaded by your husband. You guys are a working duo, right?
Yes, yes, we are.
So you started the website, thelocotourist.com. You've made a career out of writing about amazing things in Chicago. So talk about how that all got started and where we're at now.
Well, I moved to Chicago in 2001, fell in love with the city, and I knew I wanted to write for myself, so I started the local tours as a hobby and was a guide only to River North, then expanded downtown Chicago, and then I started covering the entire city. And then in 2016, I started traveling the country, and so now I still cover Chicago, and I'm very passionate about it and its history and stories.
So before we get to why we were being serenaded here at the London House, we were just talking off camera really quickly about your first experience in Chicago. You lived next to Gene and Giorgetti, which is a whole story in itself. But then you started, the blog, or I'm sorry, the website. You've written a few books. What's and the newest book that you have now, Living Landmarks of Chicago, right?
Yes, Living Landmarks of Chicago just came out in April, and it tells the stories of 50 significant Chicago landmarks, and it goes beyond the architecture and this, just the structure of it, but to tell the story of the people responsible for that building or responsible for what happened within the building itself.
So what are some of your favorite things that you discovered in writing this book?
Well, I'll start with the oldest landmark in the book. It's the Clark House, and it was built in 1836, but it's fascinating because it was moved twice, and it was able to be moved twice because it was built out of timber. When the Clarks moved to Chicago in 1835, Carolyn did not want one of those balloon frame houses because she thought it was flimsy, so she wanted timber. She got timber, and because of that, they were able to, it was moved south when another family bought it in the 1870s, and then it was moved again when it's in its present location, it became a museum.
That's incredible. I think just moving buildings has just got to be a feat in itself. But you said you found over 50. You just mentioned one. You got another one that kind of stood out to you that made you really happy that you decided to write this book?
Yes. One in particular was the Hull House Museum. And not only is Jane Addams, I mean, if one of those, who would you have dinner with from any era? I mean, I'm a Jane Addams fangirl. But the house itself, Charles Hull, was himself a philanthropist and humanitarian. And he would just leave the coal out in the bins for anybody to get. He would feed the newsboys. I mean, he was just this really wonderful person. He ended up donating, after he died, he left the house to his cousin Helen. She ended up leaving the house to Jane Addams. And so.
Wow. So when you go about writing a book like this, I mean, it's a fairly big book. What's it involve? Like, is it a lot of just online searching, or is it like on the street, walking around, checking things out, taking pictures, talking to people? How's that all work?
It's both. Ideally, it would be all just going to places like the Newberry Library and the Chicago Historical Museum, or Chicago History Museum. I keep thinking Chicago Historical Society because that's what it started as. But because I wrote the majority of this during COVID, and I ended up having to do most of it online because the Newberry Library, those research libraries were closed. I had done quite a bit of research before everything shut down, so I was able to do a lot of tours. I stayed in a lot of hotels, including the London House, so I could really get a feel for what these structures were.
Before we move on to the London House, you mentioned something earlier off camera too about the Newberry Library and Mr. Newberry. Why don't you elaborate on that real quick?
Walter Newberry traveled to Europe quite a bit. They did that if you were wealthy in the 1800s, and he died at sea and was shipped home in a rum barrel. Nobody knows if there was actually rum in it or not, but...
In this book, you went through kind of a personal endeavor while writing this book as well. So this book probably has a little bit more meaning than just publishing it. I mean, it's a big, triumphant life goal to get through what you went through, right?
Yes, and I'm going to try not to cry here because no, that's quite all right. I actually wrote most of the book while I was undergoing chemotherapy. So Monday would be my chemo day, and then the rest of the week I was doing 16-hour days of research and writing. And it's a real passion project, and it kept me going, it kept me sane, it kept me focused on something else besides what I was going through with my health. So.
Things are good now. You're right.
I'm cancer free. I'm done. Thank you. Thank you.
So here we're at the London House, and we're being serenaded by your husband in the background.
I'm sorry, who's bald because he shaved his head in solidarity. So that tells you pretty much everything you need to know about him.
Talk about the event that is going to be going on here today at the London House for the book signing. You're going to be doing a reading from the book, talking to a person on the history of this building as well, right?
Yes, yes. So it's going to be basically a Living Landmarks variety hour. So we'll have the live music, era appropriate from the 20s and before. We're going to have a featured cocktail called The Landmark. And, oh, sure. So this lovely drink will be our featured cocktail. And then
I'm going to get on top of it there so we can see it. All right.
we're also going to do fast facts. So Jim is going to just throw out a random building that's in the book, and I will quick reply with, a fast fact about it, kind of like we just did.
We just threw it out there for you. What was I know we're in the London House, but was there something where you were just absolutely floored by the history of it? Not being in Chicago for almost 20 years, where you're like, how did I not know about that?
Almost every chapter, every landmark I featured, there was some story like that. And with London House, and I'll tell the story at the event, but they have this cutout on the side, on the Michigan Avenue side, and finding out why that cutout is there was it was one of those, oh, that's awesome kind of revelations.
So you either have to read the book or go to the event to get that story. We'll leave it there. What's the best way for people to reach you, find your work, and all that good stuff?
Well, for the event itself, they can go to livinglandmarksofchicago.com. They can find the event on the site, and also if they just want to get the book, it's available there. I'm also thelocaltourist.com and @thelocaltourist on all the social channels.
Fantastic. Thank you, Theresa. I appreciate it very much. We're going to listen to a little bit of your husband before we go. So you enjoy that cocktail, and we're going to go and listen to some music. Well done, sir.
Thank you.
Before we get out of here, Jim, do you do this on the regular for people who might be interested in the event that's happening tonight? Do you do music all the time?
Sure, absolutely. In a bunch of different styles and genres as well. And you can reach me at jim@withavoicelikethis.com.
Well, look at that. Well, there we go. We're all done here at the Chicago Scene, TBARNES at WGNTV.com. That's TBarnes at WGNTV.com. Thank you, Theresa. I appreciate it. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. We'll see you later.